Robert back here. I've got this old early 30s model 228B that I've really been itching to tear into. The problem is someone broke off the vent stud and tried to drill it out and messed up, and they shot this screw here down in it, and they cracked the top of the mixing chamber gas block. So I want to keep it as original as I can, but having trouble finding one right now. But I do have a very similar laying over here that's not as in good a shape. My vent is in really bad shape on this. It's, as you can see, it's rusted in 2 pieces, but it has the mixing chamber I need. And like I said, I'm really itching to tear into this one, and as bad as I hate to, I think I'm going to rob Peter to pay Paul. So if y'all want to stick around and watch me do this, you're more than welcome. First thing I want to do, as usual, remove the generator, 7/16 wrench, and I grab a half. Alright, this should turn loose fairly easy. You screw the generator nut, lift up on the generator. You might have to twist it, wiggle it just a little bit. The pricker lever is already, the center block is already raised in that position, but it is froze. You keep twisting like that and it should pop right off there. Okay, next thing I want to do, I want to remove this screw at the back of the valve assembly. Or cleaner rod assembly, I guess you would call that part of it. These usually come out fairly easy. Next, I'm going to try to turn that out. Hopefully we can turn it out without heat. If it's being stubborn, we can heat the bottom of it there with the torch, and that should release it, but hopefully we won't need to do that. I'm just going to grab it by hand at first, and oh yeah, she's turning. That's going to be simple enough. Before I go any further, I'm going to remove this screw from the top of here. This is a 50-50 chance. I have, half the time I have luck getting them out, and half the time I can't get them to budge. So we're going to try it. Once again, coming out really simple. So far we're having pretty good luck on this one. Nothing seems to be seized up. Okay, before we take that any farther, let's go ahead and heat that up, and so we can remove these burner tubes. My bigger butane torch I've got packed up in my camping gear, and it's raining outside, and I really don't want to get out in the rain right now, so maybe this will give us enough heat. Okay, that little torch wasn't cutting it. That wasn't much more than a cigarette lighter. So I went to the cabinet and broke out the big boy. I'll wrap a piece of leather around the burner. Gently try to turn this. Not putting a whole lot of pressure on it. Okay, I got one of the burner tubes out. On the other one, the only thing that turned was the burner cap, which I really didn't want to do that right now. But anyway, as you can see, my burner screen is rotted in half on that, so we'll need to be replacing that too. Okay, this other burner tube really seems to be seized up, and I really don't want to crush it. So I'm going to attempt, see if we can get this in here, just to get a little leverage. Use that plumber's pipe flaring vise to keep from crushing the tube. Hopefully we can get enough grip on it just like that. Not enough, a whole lot of room to turn it in here, but it'll just be able to turn it enough to break it, hopefully. Done the trick. Not pushing any pressure on these vice grips. I'm just kind of turning it with these because that thing is hot. I've got the leather on there to protect the brass. Basically just turning it, no pressure. Now we can finish turning this. Need a bigger piece of leather here. Okay, I've had that soaking in some magic wrench. We're going to try to save this air tube. This is the bad mixing chamber, so I'm not worried about putting leather in the vise to protect it. I'm just going to put that in there and just to hold it. Okay, I'm going to drop that down, the vise just a little farther, just where I can get a good grip on it. You know, I'm just snugging that down. I don't want to overkill it. I'm going to use my plumber's flaring vise again. I've got that attached kind of low right near the chamber. Let's see if we can, there we go. That's how you remove one of them. This plumber's flaring vise, and it is handy for removing these tip. We're going to remove that nut that tightens the burner cage down. Well, not remove it, we're going to loosen it. It won't remove. We're going to loosen it. To do that, I've modified a 9/16 wrench, heated it with a torch, and bent it at an angle where it will recess down in that burner cage. Took my belt grinder and ground the edges down. Just left me enough meat on there where I can grip it. I think this does the trick. Okay, now we can remove the top assembly of the valve. Always like to place a piece of leather on there to protect the brass. And I will put a generator nut back across those threads just in case it slips. I don't want to damage my threads. I mean, damage them threads, we're hurting. Y'all have seen my homemade valve removal tool before. It's just deep well impact socket. I think it was a 3/4. Just took a grinder and crudely ground a notch out in it. Does the trick. Don't get an opportunity to work on these older lanterns like this, but I've never seen the assembly for it. It's got a little extension for the air tube. Most of the air tubes on the newer ones are threaded all the way up about right here, and they grind off the threads where that will slide down through there. But this actually has an extension, so that's pretty neat. Remove this valve wheel. Put the screw back in there for safekeeping. Looks like we have an unwanted house guest in there. Also, while I'm looking in there, I can see that thread sealer. So that tells me somebody has had this lantern apart in the past, or it would not have that thread sealer there. Coleman did not use a thread sealer anywhere except where the valve screws into the fount. Okay, now we can lift off the collar. Now this collar is a little different than most. It is crimped. Pretty heavy duty crimp there. And you can see it's like it's molded. It's almost like they've poured a mold for this collar or something. It has runs in it. Never seen that before. Like welding runs. All the way around. It's different. Same way with the cage. I bet that's the the galvanized coating they put on there or something. I mean, I bet that's ran when they put it on there. I bet that's what that is. I bet that's galvanizing. And they put it on there too thick and it's ran down. Okay, we're going to remove this valve now. And I don't want to put too much heat on that brass fount. So I'm going back to this little micro torch again. And not this one. This one don't work. Let me trash that one while I'm thinking about it. All right. This micro torch, I can concentrate the heat right on the bung itself and not really heat up the fount no more than I have to. Take the 9/16 socket. Bingo. Turn them out. Try to hold that socket as straight as you can. You don't want to mash down or lift up while you're turning it because you don't want to warp the top of that fountain. Now that is a different fuel pickup tube than any other I've seen. Looks like the end of that one may turn off. I've never seen one like this. Usually they're brazed on the end. And it also has threads on the very bottom. I wonder what those are for. I've never seen that. See if the bottom of that turn off. That'll make for some easy cleaning. Very different. Definitely a little build up in there on that brass, so it definitely needed a good cleaning. Kind of tarnish build up. I didn't mention it, but just automatically I just stretched that spring just a little bit, just put a little life back into it. You don't want to stretch it a whole lot, just to give it a little life back. It's been compressed for a lot of years. Got an air hole on each side. It's got 2 air holes for the top of it instead of just one. We'll cover both of those, plug them off with my finger. Shoots all the way through. Now I'm going to plug the other end off and see if it'll shoot out the air hose. That's what I want to see. So that's working properly. It looks like it's nickel plated also. Generally these are brass. I don't know if it's nickel or it's silver. It could be galvanized. I don't know. Kind of looks galvanized. But I'm not sure how that's going to react to the vinegar boil, so I don't think I'm going to boil that since it's spraying freely. I'm going to leave it as is. Clean that tarnish off that just a little bit. I think we'll be good to go on that. Guess definitely nickel. Said I'm not sure what the purpose of the threads are on the end of that. I have to do a little research. valve assembly. Never seen one made like that before. Got that little nipple sticking out of the back of it there. It's kind of hexagon shape. I'm sure it's got a reason, but looks like it might even have a little hole in it. Very interesting. We'll give that a vinegar boil. Okay, next step, we're going to remove this pump. So this is an older style. It has the screw-in pump. So we're just going to unscrew that. We're going to inspect our pump leather. Looks really good. Still soft. So let's just soak that in some neat oil while we're working on the rest of it. Now we can remove this valve stem. It seems to be a longer valve stem than normal too. Okay, I pulled a air pump stem out of a standard 220. Look at the difference in that. That thing's over an inch longer. Very interesting. Okay, now we can proceed to removing the check valve. Came out fairly easy. Yeah, even the check valve in this thing is much different than the standard. So it's definitely a very early check valve. Kind of reminds you of a bullet. When I was spraying that air tube, I didn't do it, but I've got on my Nerlite gloves now. Had a subscriber comment on that chemicals from these sprays can seep through your skin and cause you some serious harm down the road. So I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to be rather be better safe than sorry. So I'm putting on my gloves. I'm trying to get in the habit of doing that. It's hard to do. I went. Sitting there spraying the other check valve I pulled out. There's what I'm looking for. Man, that sprays through her good, don't it? Back flush it from the other side. See, nothing trying to go through the other side. That definitely sprays through her a lot better than the newer check valves. That should be good to go right there. Move that cap. Well, before we do that, see if we can turn that screw out of there. Right, got lucky it come right out. Now we'll remove the cap. I'm just going to spray this down with some chrome and glass cleaner. I'm not going to let that soak on there very long. Just going to leave it on there very shortly and wipe it right back off. Okay, I'm going to spray a little oven cleaner around that thing. Let that soak about 15 minutes and I'm going to wipe that off. Okay, off camera, I took and just wiped it down a little bit from the oven cleaner. Took it inside and rinsed it off really well under this faucet sink, and just put a little mother's mag on it now. I think I've said this before. If you want to see a lantern restored completely, where they buff its nickel out and make it look like brand new, you're looking at the wrong channel. I'm just going to buff this out, make it shine again. I'm not worried about buffing it. I mean, it's not going to match the rest of the lantern if you do that, my opinion. So I'm just going to polish it a little bit with the mother's mag and leave it as is. There you go. Don't look new, still got scratches, but it looks 100% better than it did. Okay, my eccentric block, turn up the lever, it's frozen. Just going to loosen this a little bit. You can't see it from the camera, but when I loosen it, the whole assembly is turning. And the eccentric block is moving up and down, so that tells me it's frozen up in here. Tighten that bottom portion back down. There we go. Still frozen. So I'm going to apply a little heat. Done it. Okay, our valve assembly was frozen before I started, but the vinegar bowl freed it up, so it's turning freely now. Okay, this generator, boiled it in vinegar and shock carburetor cleaner through it. There's nothing else I can do with this one. I can't take the insides out. This is an older style generator. It's got a little crimp right there on each end. It's got a little plate crimped in there to keep the insides from coming out, so most likely it's got asbestos in it. So I took the needle out, cleaned the needle, and shot carburetor cleaner through it, took the tip off, shot the carburetor cleaner through the tip, put it back together. Hopefully it'll work. If not, we'll swap it out with a newer generator. We can put the check valve back in now. Okay, off camera, I put a new cap gasket in here. I have a video on that, so I didn't do it now. Okay, this is the only place I'm going to apply any thread locker. Could probably get by without it, but it helps when you're clocking it if you don't want to over tighten it. Or if you do over tighten it just to hurry, you can turn it back. And these thread locker will dry and hold it in place. Okay, don't make the same mistake I did. Put the thing back together. I forgot to put my fuel air tube back on. So let's get that back in there real quick and take that thing back apart. Slide the collar back on. Put our extension back in for our air tube. The newer style lanterns, you can remove the air tube before you take this assembly out. And it makes it a lot easier to turn this nut right here, but with this extension made like that, it don't give you much clearance. Cage back on. We're going to attempt to tighten that nut back down. Just it is not easy. Get as far as we can by hand. Won't take much. Just getting a bite on it. Just no clearance. Put the mixing chamber back on. Just make sure you put it on the top of the tube. The hose will line up with those holes. The generators will be coming from the bottom. Okay, we got the hole lined up with the hole in the air tube. Thread that screw back in. Thread our burner tubes back in. Thread the whole air tube assembly back in. Okay, we ran into a problem. The little extension for the air tube, I've threaded it up too high, so my air tube's not going to feed back down in there all the way. It's not lining my hose back up. So I'm going to have to take that assembly back out, thread in the air tube first, and then the extension to get the hose to line up. I can see why they done away with the extension and started just grinding the threads off the main air tube. I mean, this is a pain in the hind end. So that's one improvement they done over the years that wasn't to save money, I don't guess. All right, I think that's got our hose lined up. Now it'd be safe to tighten down that extension. Okay, I've had my pump leather soaking in neat fluid oil, so she's good to go. We can put our valve wheel back on. Directional disc. Put the generator on. Feed it through the hole in the air tube. Hook the hook into the eccentric block. Not easy to do with one hand. Okay, now all that's left is cleaning up this ventilator and the globe. Okay, I'm going to try this with just 5 pumps. See what happens. Vent's got a few blemishes in it, but it's really not in bad a shape to be in 1932. I'm tickled with it. I think it turned out good. Get that etching. See the Pyrex etched into the back. Love it. Alright, y'all know the routine. If y'all like these videos, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, share. Thank y'all for watching. God bless.